The GOAT of women's basketball just retired. We're going to talk about it. You're locked on.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, I wanted to come up to say how thankful we are for all of you and appreciate all of your support. We're proud to say we're the only daily podcast covering UConn men's and women's basketball, the hoops capital of the world, and we're thrilled to bring you the coverage you deserve. To show our gratitude, we're giving back. We're donating 10% of our revenue to Husky Ticket Project, helping send kids to UConn games. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. All right, welcome back to the show here to Locked On UConn. Special shout out to our everydayers who are with us every day. I've met some of you in my travels. Appreciate every single one of you. We're diving into the legacy of a player who didn't just change the game at UConn. She redefined women's basketball as we know it. Diana Taurasi. The name alone conjures up images of clutch shots, unrelenting competitiveness, a career that stretched an incredible 20 years and counting. This morning, I went to the gym, and I typically do a basketball workout, and there's typically not a lot of people there early in the morning at the gym. Well, I found out this morning that a couple people had the same idea as me, and I'm old. I'm 43 years old. I think a little older than Diana. I think she just retired at 42. And a couple younger guys said, "Hey, do you guys want to run 2-on-2?" And I literally am wearing my 2002 national championship shirt, and I was just like, in my head, my body was saying, "No, do not play 2-on-2," because it's just not. It's in me, but it just I hadn't warmed up, all that stuff, all the excuses that you run through your head. But in my brain, my Diana Taurasi competitiveness, probably have a tenth of her competitiveness, said, "The hell with it. We're gonna run twos." And it was tough. It was not pretty at times, but guess what? I got through it, and that's because I thought about her. I thought about my shirt I was wearing. And I was just like, I can't disrespect that legacy and not play basketball to the best of my ability. So listen, going back to her, forget about me. She wasn't just a star. She was the heartbeat of a dynasty. From Chino, California. She walks onto the UConn campus in 2000, leaves 4 years later with 3 national titles. She had iconic performances like the 2003 Final Four masterpiece against Tennessee, where she dropped 28 points to seal the deal. She's quoted as saying, "We own this dynasty. We own this rivalry now." She brought swagger, precision, an edge that elevated Gino's program to new heights. But her story didn't end in stores. Diana took the same fire into the pros, 3 WNBA titles, 2 MVPs, and a highlight reel of game winners that earned her the nickname White Mamba from Kobe Bryant himself. And let's not forget, it was by necessity, but overseas she won six EuroLeague titles, proving that her brilliance knew no borders. She was a world-renowned star, a clutch performer who lives in the big moment. Diana Taurasi's 20-year career isn't just a testament to longevity. It's a masterclass in excellence. So today, we're breaking down what makes Diana Taurasi the gold standard, not just for UConn, but for women's basketball worldwide. And we're going to bring in my co-host, Bella Tamana, here shortly, because we're going to talk about what does Diana Taurasi mean to her and to anybody that's watched this UConn program going forward. So let's get Bella in here and ask her the question to her. All right, Bella, what does Diana Taurasi mean to you?
I think the answer is simple. I think Diana Taurasi is so important to me as a former basketball player, but also just she has paved the way for women's basketball in so many ways. Coach Gino just recently released a statement on Diana saying that Diana is the greatest winner in the history of basketball, period. There's really no debate about it. 3 national titles, 2, well, I guess this is a little bit more player specific for her, but 2-time National Player of the Year, 6 gold medals, I believe.
6.
Just an incredible winner. And you already listed all the accolades. There's no need to go in people understand that she's won, but I think her impact cannot be quantified at the end of the day. She has truly paved the way for so many other women's basketball players. And I think she also was one of the first players to kind of butt heads with Gino a little bit. I think we got some fun moments out of them. We saw when Gino had his ceremony for being the winningest coach of all time. She touched on how she met with Gino's wife, saying, I can't handle him. And his wife said, "Hey, me either." So I think those are the funny moments. We got some moments like that, but she also just such a leader, such an impactful player. And like you said, I mean, if you're getting some shouts from Kobe Bryant calling her the White Mamba, I think that alone shows just how much of an impact she had. She lost 8 games in her collegiate career, and I mean was hardly ever hurt. That's another thing. I mean she was healthy. She was a competitor, and at the end of the day, she had the most heart in the building. There was 10 players on the court, however many players on the bench, and Diana, I would say, often had, I mean, probably the most heart out of at least I would say couple players on their bench as well. I mean, she was an absolute competitor.
Yeah, I think she what's interesting about her is that competitive fire. It just, you don't, and people are going to think I'm being an old head here, and that's fine because I am. But like when you talk about the type of players that came in and they're essentially getting a scholarship, they're getting an opportunity to play and kind of showcase their talent, right? But they weren't getting, this is pre-NIL, so they're not getting paid. And then you get drafted into the WNBA and you're not making any money. Like the money that they're making now, which is like $100,000. I think $75,000 is like the top salary in the WNBA, which is nothing to sneeze at, right? It's a living wage depending on what city you're in, but it's not professional basketball level, right? And so she went through so much in her life to kind of get to the point where now she's celebrated. I'm sure she's, made a ton of money now because she played overseas. Like, I think the women that are in the WNBA now, as much as I want to celebrate them, they need to look at Diana and others like a Candace Parker and that really kind of paved the way for them to stay in the States, for someone to have the forethought of someone like Brianna Storr and Defisa Collier to start a league like unrivaled. Because without Diana, without some of the players that came before them, they don't have those opportunities. And she needs to be celebrated for that. Even if we took away all of her accolades, all of her gold medals, all of her, personal awards, like the fact that she has always been at the forefront of, the game of women's college basketball is in being kind of the leader of all of that has been, and her, Sue Bird and others, but like it's really important to kind of make sure that we mention that and not just be about the basketball, because she's one of the best players I've ever seen. I've seen her in person. She just moved different. You know what I mean? And we're going to talk about someone who she reminds me of, but hasn't been as lucky physically in Paige Bueckers. And we're going to talk about that after the break and kind of do a little fun. Oh, go ahead. You want something to say?
Just one thing before. I think the other thing that shows just how much of an impact Diana's had is, I mean, she graduated in 2004. I wasn't born until 2005, right? So I don't really, I there was no overlap between her college career at UConn and my life, really. I mean, and even that prime of her, women's WNBA career and even Olympic career. Obviously, she played for that kind of second half, that conscious part of my mind. But just for somebody like me to be sitting here and talking, so highly of her, I think speaks volumes to how much of an impact she had, because I wasn't around for it, but you know the name Diana Taurasi if you know anything about women's basketball, not just UConn basketball,
Sure.
not just any basketball. And you know what? No, not even women's basketball. You know the name Diana Taurasi if you know basketball. Honestly, if you know the greats of sports, Diana Taurasi's got to be there. You know what I'm saying? So I think that let alone shows how important she is to sports.
Well said. We're going to be right back after the break. Attention, Locked On UConn fans. The future of college sports is here, and it's transparent. Before the Roy app, NIL negotiations often happen under the table, and fans didn't have any clear way to directly support athletes they love. Now with Roy, you get to be a part of the change and support UConn athletes in the most transparent way possible. The Roy app allows you to choose the player you want to support, decide how much you contribute, receive exclusive content from the athletes you back. And the best part, if your player transfers, you get your money back. It's a risk-free way to show your support. The Roy app is giving fans control. No more uncertainty. Now you can provide transparent, impactful support and help shape the team, the future of college sports with your contributions. Download the Roy app now from the App Store and start backing UConn athletes the way you deserve, with transparency, trust, and real impact. This is the future of college sports. Join it now by downloading Roy and supporting your favorite players. All right, you're back on Locked On UConn with Bella Tamano, Hoops Capital of the World, and me, of course, Mark Zanetto, host of Locked On UConn. All right, so the Diana versus Paige conversation is an interesting one because it's not a fair fight, and it's almost like different weight classes. They're very similar players in the respect. If you just took film of Paige and film of Diana and you put them up on a big screen, and you kind of looked at it from that perspective. They are both elite athletes. They both can kind of get their shot whenever they want to. They both are floor generals in the respect that they are better when the ball is in their hands because they can affect so much around them. And they're the best players on their team. The huge difference is Diana's won a ton and Paige has not. And part of that is because, it's just part of it is she's been hurt. Like that's a big part. You know what I mean? Like obviously you lose a bunch of seasons and your time frame to win national titles is shrunk. How would you kind of talk about if we were to kind of compare Paige's career and Diana's career?
So I think one glaring thing for me is social media. That's what it's social media and NIL kind of coupled together. Because I feel like those are kind of like the new waves. I would say if Diana had NIL back in the day, I think she would have been even more impactful. If she had social media back in the day, I think Diana Taurasi, like her name's already big. I mean, her name would be the. I don't even know. I can't even do those numbers, crunch those numbers in my head right now. That's the one thing for me. I think that because Paige has social media and NIL and things like that. I mean, she just had a piece done by GQ literally yesterday. She was in one of the photos. She's on a basketball court. It's literally outside my window. My roommate
Right.
saw her taking those photos literally I want to say last semester or something like that. So, but I just think that social media has really aided Paige's career because even when she was injured and things like that, people aren't going to forget about her. She's not going to kind of take the back burner because they're still talking about her. They're still posting, highlights, things like that, which not that people would have forgot, but I do think that she would have taken more of a back seat. I also think, I mean, you said it. I just think Paige not having any championships. She's only been to the finals once. Diana's got 3 in a row. I don't know. I guess for me, I just think that championships are super important. Now, the other thing that kind of poses a question for me is surrounding cast. Do you think this is kind of your forte more so? Because again, I wasn't alive for it. I mean, so obviously I've seen Paige. I think she's played with a couple good players. I think if her and Sarah had a little bit more of an overlap, I think that would have been awesome. I think that would have been huge. Obviously this team's been played by injuries with AZ as well, who's, was supposed to be another one of the greats. Do you think that Diana had a better surrounding cast that kind of ultimately helped her and hurt Paige?
Yeah, but I also think they're different players in the respect that we talk about how Paige is so yes, the answer before I go on my longer answer, the answer to the question is yes. Diana had a better supporting cast, but put that aside for a second. If you put Diana Taurasi in her prime on this UConn team and you took Paige out, I think they're even better than they are not because Paige isn't good or because she's not, an all-time great. Diana's different in the respect of, I was going to get to this later, but since you brought it up, the difference between Diana and Paige is, and people think this isn't something that you can quantify. You can't look at this in an analytics book. You can't do this or kind of a spreadsheet and say, well, Paige is more efficient. She probably is, but Gino's been saying this for all time that Paige has been on campus. When Paige is more aggressive, they're a better team. You don't have to tell Diana Taurasi to be aggressive. And I think that's the only difference. And I don't know if it's, just their competitive nature is different because Paige is competitive to no end, but it's just different time. It's just a different time. And it sucks to kind of compare eras, but the basketball is better now because there are more better teams. There are a lot better teams than there were when Diana was playing at UConn. But the competitive nature of those times was definitely at a higher level because everyone was poor. They don't have any money. Like, I don't even mean that to be funny. Like,
Yeah.
The hungry dog gets the bone. Like, it's just like, whatever euphemism you want to use. But, there's a great clip from Deion Sanders talking about recruiting and how each position that he recruits, he wants a different profile for it. He literally joked around and said, for my defensive ends and the guys who are chasing the quarterback, he's like, I want people that their parents didn't pick them up from practice. They had to walk home because they're going to be hungrier. They're going to be more like, not as coddled. And so to me, I don't think Paige is coddled. She really, it's just such an interesting kind of study in human nature. When you are a millionaire in college already and things are going well, awesome. But when things aren't going well, people kind of tend to try to chop you down. I'm not doing that. I just think Diana is better suited for what Gino wants at that position.
Yeah, I think it's almost like we're comparing, Jordan versus LeBron, and I think it's tough to compare eras. The game was definitely different. But for me, when I think of that conversation, one-on-one, LeBron probably smokes him. I mean, he's got probably 30 pounds on him, a couple inches. But at the end of the day, for me, Jordan was a winner, 6-0 in the finals. And that's kind of what I look at. Same with Diana and Paige. I honestly think Diana might beat Paige in a one-on-one, as you kind of alluded to earlier. But at the end of the day, for me, championships is very important. It's the same thing in any conversation throughout sports. I mean, Brady versus Mahomes. People are trying to put Mahomes in the GOAT conversation after winning his 4th Super Bowl. Brady's got 7, and the guy played 22 years. I mean, and also the games are just different, like you said. I just think in any sport, things are going to evolve. Now they have so much more exposure, AAU tournaments, things like that. And the social media part, I think it all comes back to that too. You have your mixtape go viral, bam, you're already on 10 college coaches' radars. So
sure.
I think that's just kind of how the cookie crumbles in that regard. But for me, obviously, I wasn't even around during Diana's UConn legacy, and Paige has been so integral. I think for me, just to kind of close it out, is Diana on the court, Paige off the court, because I think Paige has it in viewership, in ticket sales, and things like that. If Diana was around in this era, maybe you could say the same for her. But I'll take Diana on the court and Paige off the court.
I'll put a bow on that, and then we'll move on to the Creighton preview. I will say, though, Paige's popularity only is popular because of someone like Diana Taurasi. So you can't. It's in the same thing with LeBron and Jordan. Like, LeBron is as popular as he's a billionaire. He is a global icon because of the guys that came before him, like Jordan, like Magic, like Bird, etc. So you can debate who's better. You can debate who's the GOAT, all of that stuff, like people do all the time. I have a haircut today at 11 o'clock. I guarantee you people are going to be debating something interesting in there. It's usually basketball related. So when we're talking about these topics, that's fine. You can debate it all you want, but you can't have LeBron without Jordan. You can't have Paige without Diana.
Yeah.
So we're gonna move past it, and then God, something's wrong with my throat, but that's okay. So I'll sound more, I guess, deeper voice, maybe distinguished. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm gonna take a quick break, and then we come back. We're gonna do the Creighton UConn preview, and then also what has to happen down the stretch, final tune-ups before Big East tournament, NCAA tournament for UConn to kind of get on this train and get themselves to Tampa and potentially win a 12th national title. We'll be back. Life moves fast, especially when you have a family. One day you're watching your kids take their first steps. Before you know it, they're off to college. That's why securing their future is so important. Fabric by Gerber Life makes it simple to get term life insurance that fits your family's needs. With Fabric, you can apply for term life insurance online right from your couch. You can be covered in under 10 minutes, and in many cases, no health exam is required. Look, I'm a parent. It gives peace of mind, no matter what's going on, whether your family is financially sound or you're looking to kind of pinch pennies. I think right now, if you do this, you get yourself protected no matter what happens. Life has a way of coming around, and there's a lot of unexpected twists and turns. So Fabric offers free digital wills, access to investment accounts to help your plan for your children's future. Join thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their families. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. That's meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions. All right, back on Locked On UConn with Bellatomano, Locked On UConn, a contributor and Hoops Capital of the World writer, also a student at UConn. Love that she's. I think the court you were talking about is right by where I stay when I'm there. Right by the Graduate, right?
Yep.
Yeah, sweet double rims, outdoor court. All right, obviously here, Mark Sinetto. Thanks for jumping back on with us. UConn Creighton. Last game, Creighton gave them a little bit of a run. It felt like that gym those rims were tight in front of a huge crowd. It just felt like everyone was a little like a step slow. What do you expect from this game tonight? What should we be looking for? Like the thing, like if you're Gino or your CD, what do you want to see from this team tonight?
I think tomorrow. I think they play tomorrow.
It'll be out tomorrow.
I
see.
Yeah, I see. So I guess for me, I want to see. I guess I don't think that Creighton gives them too much of trouble. It definitely was their closest Big East game this year. UConn won it by 11, I believe it was, but. I think right now, last episode we talked about how dominant UConn's been over the last couple stretches. You beat a team like South Carolina by 30, and then you go to a Big East game, even though Creighton only has 4 losses on the season and they're second in the Big East. I don't think there's any way that I don't want to say that Creighton's not going to give them a little bit of a fight like they did slightly last time, but I think UConn comes out with another double-digit win. I could see UConn winning anywhere between 15 and 20 points. And I think for me, you have to just worry about closing out on shooters. Obviously, Laura Jensen, Morgan Maley are pretty good. Pretty good 3-point shooters, and can score the basketball. The team collectively shoots about 45% from the floor, just over 35% from 3. So I think that's the only problem for me. Other than that, they're kind of small. So I don't expect them to. I think we've been out rebounding a lot of teams this season, or in the last stretch we have been out rebounding. So I think we're in a good spot to play this game. Not too worried by any means, I guess. Are you feeling the same or kind of?
Yeah, I think for me, what I want to see from, if I'm Gino or if I'm CD, what I want to see from them is I want them to play this game like they're not playing a Big East game. I don't want them to think about that it's Creighton. I don't want them to think about that this is a walkover because we kill everybody in the Big East. I want them to trick their mind, whatever needs to happen, to get themselves in a space where they're playing against South Carolina again, because that South Carolina game showed me that they are capable of winning a national championship, but it's been few and far between. So, and I mean that in all seriousness, because as good as they've been in this stretch, I want to see it like from the jump of South Carolina. When Jana crossed over homegirl, she like went straight to the hole. And that was like that was essentially how this game got off to such a great start. And so I want them to do that when they play Creighton. I want them to do it when they play Georgetown in the Big East tournament, whoever, you know what I mean? Like, this is, to quote the great Yogi Berra, it's getting late early. And what that means is there's not that many games left. Like, you can't have a clunker. Even if Creighton gives them I hope Creighton gives them a little bit, punches them back in the mouth a little bit, wake them up a little bit, because they're more talented, they're bigger, they're stronger, they're faster. But just because you are doesn't mean that you're guaranteed to win. So I just think sometimes there's, and this is just human nature. When you are always killing people, there's an entitlement that starts to kind of happen, like just human nature, right? That needs to just be shedded from this team for the next however many games are left in this season. And if that happens, then this team is definitely capable of hanging Gino's 12th banner.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I like that mindset. I think this is probably going to be the toughest game, toughest in quotes, depending on how it goes.
And they're a tournament team. Like,
yeah,
this isn't like St. John's. This isn't like a Villanova team that you're going to win by 60 points, or Seton Hall. Like, Creighton's going to be like an 8 seed or a 7 seed. So it's very possible for this team to make a run to the Sweet 16. You got to be ready for these types of games, because these are the tournament games you're going to see in a few weeks.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think for me, it's tune-up time. You got to make sure you're in a good spot for the tournament. Finalize kind of, okay, like what our rotation's going to be. I think tonight, I want to say I feel like Janelle Alfie, it's got to be her night. Size-wise and defensively, she needs to dominate. She needs to, because I think this is the final chance for her to get some confidence going into the tournament. I think same thing with Aubrey Griffin. She's definitely getting better each game she plays, without a doubt. But I do think that she needs to be ready to play even more minutes, because if there's some foul trouble, if, she's just playing well, she's got to be able to, be oiled up and be ready to go the distance if need be. And I think same thing with her. Obviously, she's, a hybrid of a player. So I think tonight, Jana and Aubrey are kind of my two girls that I'm going to be looking to maybe get double digits, I want to say, especially from Jana.
You know what? I agree with you, but I'm going to put a little wrinkle on that. I think with Aubrey, I think what Gino is doing is he's kind of saving her for the tournament run, meaning like, listen, he hasn't said this, but in my mind, I think he's keeping her on a pitch count. And then once we get to Big East tournament, once we get to the NCAA tournament, it's essentially like when she's needed, there's not going to be any limits. And like, I think if she's playing well, if she's playing at a high level, then you're going to see her get 25, 30 minutes in an NCAA tournament game, because they just need to get her physically capable of doing that, versus doing that against a Big East squad that you're beating by 30 points makes absolutely no sense. Yeah. So I think that's part of it. And you're right about Jana. I think she's really become kind of more reliable in the respect of she like walls up now. She doesn't commit silly fouls. She doesn't bring the ball down anymore initially. She takes her time when she goes to the basket, because she's just such a physical presence. And if that's the case, then yeah, I mean, like, she's going to be a huge factor down the stretch.
Yeah, and I think the other person to look to a little bit too tonight, to get, not obviously, she only played 2 minutes last game, but Caroline Ducharme, I'd like her to play again. They're really, really trying to ease her back, but I'd like her to play a little bit of an important role tonight, in the sense, because this, like we said, is going to be the most, and the biggest game we play until the tournament comes. I would say just so she can get that kind of a little bit more adrenaline feel to her. Again, you're not going to try to rush her back. She barely played last game, but maybe give her like the last 30 seconds or last minute of a half, something like that, where she's still kind of playing against the starters. Maybe, draw up a play for her just for confidence, and also just to kind of get that game-like feel.
Are we ready for March?
I think at this point in time, I want to say yes. I think there's a couple very just nitpicky things that can be done. But at this point, you beat a team like South Carolina by 30 plus points. I'm going to say yeah.
I agree. I think just the intensity needs to be ramped up. The every day is like life and death mentality needs to be ramped up for this team, and on the women's side and the men's side in different ways. So, but that's it. Like I think we're good. I think we're ready for March. I think we may actually sneak into a 1 seed, but we're gonna save that for another day. All right, this has been another episode of Locked On UConn for Bella Tamano, and I'm your host, Mark Snow, asking you to stay locked in, stay connected, and it's not about getting it done. It's about doing it in a way that it can't be done any better. That's our goal every day, and as always, go Huskies.